Okay, so I'm just going to wing this. There's some things that I don't know how to organize to be able to tell you what I need to tell you. So I'm going to show you. Okay. We know the numbers are getting crazy, right? Well, let's go to FDA. False positives. U.S. FDA warns about false positive results from COVID-19. That's the first story that it shows. Second, potential for false positive results with SARS-CoV. FDA, COVID-19 rapid antigen test can give false positive. Alerts on false positive result from Becton. FDA, it just goes on and on about false positive results. Okay, well, FDA, false negatives. FDA's ongoing work to support and advance false positive or false negative results can contribute to the spread. Oh boy. So all tests used for COVID should be validated before use. Yeah, well, if you look, you can see that that really hasn't happened. The Emergency Use Act, you need to look at that. Why a negative test doesn't rule out COVID. FDA warned in May that the test could return false negative results. Studies have found that the test misses between 1 in 3 and 1 in 7. So if you got false negatives and you got false positives, why are we using it? But we've done this before. Let me find my article. I'm sorry, I'm got anxious. Yeah. Faith in quick test. Pull it up here. Come on. Okay, faith in quick test leads to epidemic that wasn't. Let me get that off my screen. Okay, January 22nd, 2007. Dr. Brooke Herndon, an internist at Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center, could not stop coughing for 2 weeks. Starting in mid-April last year, she coughed seemingly nonstop, followed by another week when she coughed sporadically, annoying, she said, everyone who worked with her. Before long, Dr. Catherine Kirkland, an infectious disease specialist at Dartmouth, had a chilling thought. Could she be seeing the start of a whooping cough epidemic? By late April, other healthcare workers at the hospital were coughing, and severe intractable coughing is a whooping cough hallmark. Sorry, I lost my spot. And if it was whooping cough, the epidemic had to be contained immediately because the disease could be deadly to babies in the hospital and could lead to pneumonia in the frail and vulnerable adult patients there. Sound familiar? It was the start of a bizarre episode at the medical center, the story of the epidemic that wasn't. For months, nearly everyone involved thought the medical center had had a huge whooping cough outbreak with extensive ramifications. Nearly 1,000 healthcare workers at the hospital in Lebanon, New Hampshire, were given a preliminary test and furloughed from work until their results were in. 142 people, including Dr. Herndon, were told they appeared to have the disease, and thousands show full article. And thousands were given antibiotics and a vaccine for protection. Hospital beds were taken out of commission, including some in intensive care. Then about 8 months later, healthcare workers were dumbfounded to receive an email message from the hospital administration informing them that the whole thing was a false alarm. Not a single case of whooping cough was confirmed with the definitive test, growing the bacterium, Bordetella pertussis, in the laboratory. Instead, it appears the healthcare workers probably were afflicted with ordinary respiratory diseases like the common cold. Now, as they look back on the episode, epidemiologists and infectious disease specialists say the problem was that they placed too much faith in a quick and highly sensitive molecular test that led them astray. Infectious disease experts say such tests are coming into increasing use and may be the only way to get a quick answer in diagnosing diseases like whooping cough, Legionnaires, bird flu, tuberculosis, and SARS. Remember, this was 2007. And deciding whether an epidemic is underway. There are no national data on pseudo-epidemics caused by an over-reliance on such molecular tests, said Dr. Trish M. Pearl, an epidemiologist at Johns Hopkins and past president of the Society of Healthcare Epidemiologists of America. But, she said, pseudo-epidemics happen all the time. The Dartmouth case may have been one of the largest, but it was by no means an exception, she said. There was a similar whooping cough scare at Children's Hospital in Boston last fall that involved 36 adults and 2 children. Definitive tests, though, did not find pertussis. Quote, "It's a problem. We know it's a problem," Dr. Pearl said. "My guess is that what happened at Dartmouth is going to become more common." Many of the new molecular tests are quick but technically demanding, and each laboratory may do them in its own way. These tests, called home brews, are not commercially available, and there are no good estimates of their error rates. But their very sensitivity makes false positives likely, and when hundreds or thousands of people are tested, as occurred at Dartmouth, false positives can make it seem like there is an epidemic. Quote, "You're in a little bit of no man's land with the new molecular test," said Dr. Mark Perkins, an infectious disease specialist and chief scientific officer at the Foundation for Innovative New Diagnostics, a nonprofit foundation supported by, can you see that? No, maybe not. Bill and Mel Foundation. They're in a lot of, fingers are in a lot of stuff. "All bets are off on exact performance," quote, unquote. Of course, that leads to the question of why rely on them at all. Quote, "At face value, obviously they shouldn't be doing it," Dr. Pearl said. But, she said, often when answers are needed and an organism like the pertussis bacterium is finicky and hard to grow in a laboratory, you don't have great options. Waiting to see if the bacteria could grow can take weeks, but the quick molecular test can be wrong. It's almost like you're trying to pick the least of two evils, Dr. Pearl said. At Dartmouth, the decision was to use a test, PCR, for polymerase chain reaction, which is what we're using now. It is a molecular test that, until recently, was confined to molecular biology laboratories, which the developer, named Kerry Mullis, had said not to use it for diagnostics. But he died last year. "That's kind of what happened," quote, said Dr. Catherine Edwards, an infectious disease specialist and professor of pediatrics at Vanderbilt University. "That's the reality out there. We are trying to figure out how to use methods that have been the purview of bench scientists." The Dartmouth whooping cough story shows what can ensue. To say the episode was disruptive was an understatement, said Dr. Elizabeth Talbot, Deputy State Epidemiologist for the New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services. "You cannot imagine," Dr. Talbot said. "I had a feeling at the time that this gave us a shadow of a hint of what it might be like during a pandemic flu epidemic." Yet, epidemiologists say one of the most troubling aspects of the pseudo-epidemic is that all the decisions seemed sensible at the time. Well, this goes on. I might figure out how to link it, but my point is, people's lives are being turned upside down. They're being ruined, and in some countries, they're being incarcerated, and that's in the works here. If you're not seeing what's happening outside our country, you really need to look. I told you the Great Reset that they said for so long was conspiracy, and now all of a sudden they're using those words. What's coming, what they're leading us to, you don't want. I don't want. I don't want it for you or your children. I sure as hell don't want it for mine. And I have this crazy notion that if we can all get educated and know just how they're screwing us, maybe we can stop it. Because the alternative, well, we don't want to go there.